I will say the upside of having technical difficulties is that you get to run through all of what you were wanting to say the first time and make it better the second time because you recorded and got none of your audio. So now you have to do the whole thing all over again. Welcome back to another episode of Beautifully Nerding. I am your Auntie Bri, and today we are going to talk about Training Day. Now, I have never seen Training Day. Obviously, that's the point of this whole series. But I will say that I was under the impression that Denzel Washington was the hero of this story. And those rose-colored glasses got lifted very quickly for me. And while it was a good movie, I can definitely say that Denzel is not the hero of this story. And if you think that he is, there are some further conversations that you need to go have with the lady. You need to go talk to her. So Training Day is the 2001 movie by Anthony Fuqua. It is about a rookie cop who spends his first day as a Los Angeles narcotics officer with a rogue detective who isn't what he appears to be. I really need to start at least looking up log lines about these movies because I'm just going into them blind, which is fun as far as expectations, but like I don't be knowing what's going on. Like I didn't realize they were in LA until they got to the car and like lowriders, and I was just like, what is happening right now? But yes, I will say that my favorite part about not watching or getting any information beforehand is that I always get surprised by cameos because it's really interesting to see people like the way we see them now and then see how they were acting in media 20 years ago. It's so very entertaining to me. I enjoy it all. We start Training Day with our protagonist, Jake, played by Ethan Hawke, is getting a phone call from his training officer, Alonzo, played by Denzel Washington. So there may be times where I accidentally call Alonzo Denzel. Just know it's interchangeable. And we're just going to go with it. So, Alonzo is like, oh, like, are you going to roll call? And Jake's like, oh, like, I was, on my way out the door. And Denzel's like, we don't go to roll call. Come to this coffee shop. They meet at the coffee shop. Here's where we start to kind of get like a little bit more background on both of our main characters. So essentially, Jake is kind of definitely like, the super good cop who's like, oh, I got into this to make a difference. I have my partner, my training officer, we do everything by the book. We'll move this, that, and the third. Whereas Alonzo is definitely more so like, you have to think like the criminals that you were trying to catch and pretty much become a criminal yourself. So Jake tells a story about how he and his, training officer, who just so happened to be a female officer, made a what they thought was a DUI stop, but it ended up being a like high drug person who was going to off his ex-partner, and so they ended up stopping that from happening. And Denzel's like, so you spent all these months with this woman, and the best story you got to tell me is about some DUI stop. Which lets you know that Denzel is not the kind of cop that we should be rooting for. He gives off, I didn't get enough power as a kid when I was younger, so I'm going to make sure that I take back what I feel like is mine by force. And it's doubled down on when they leave the coffee shop and they're like walking to the car. And Jake is like looking both ways, like, oh, we're in the middle of the street. And Denzel is just like walking, like he don't care about nothing. He's just like, they not gonna hit me because I'm that dude. I got the privilege. I got the power right now. And it's just like, okay. Like he's pretty much everything that you want a cop not to be. That's what Alonzo is. They are in the car driving around, just kind of like having like a random conversation about a couple different things. They do say some things that come up later in the story, but like I'll point those out when we get there. But one thing that they say in the car, Alonzo says that they're past the, Rodney King style of policing. But for some reason, as he's saying this, I don't believe him. Like, I don't believe him at all. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's exactly the kind of police officer that you are. We finally get our first bit of police work, and we stop at this, like, house that's, like, up kind of on a hill a little bit, but, like, we're at the bottom of the hill, kind of like on a stone wall. And Alonzo says that one of the guys who's over there is actually an informant for him, and that Alonzo lets him, like, make a little money while also being able to still get information for Alonzo. And as we are watching, having this conversation, a car pulls up to the informant. An exchange is made, and Alonzo and Jake are now in pursuit of the car that just made the purchase. And so instead of making a proper police stop, Denzel pretty much puts the fear of God into these college students, pretty much probably stop them from ever wanting to do any kind of drugs ever again. He does confiscate their things, so like the stuff that they just purchased, as well as a pipe and a lighter. And I was like, that's oddly specific. Like, I get it for like confiscating so they don't have anymore, but like, I don't know, it felt odd in the moment. And I'm glad that I picked up that it felt odd, because the reason that Alonzo took all of the things was that he wanted to make Jake smoke it. And Jake is like, absolutely not. I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna get piss tested, and I'm gonna lose my job. Like, everything that I've worked for, I would lose it all. I'm not gonna do this. And Denzel like stops the car, and he's like, no, what you're gonna do is this. And Jake is like, no. Denzel does not take no for an answer. He pulls out a gun on homeboy and is like, I said smoke it. And Jake is just like, well, I don't really have a choice now. So he like takes the pull from it, and Denzel's like, okay, cool, now finish it. So Jake faces this whole bowl by himself, and I'm just like, okay, that's a lot. So they continue driving on, and we see that now like everything is starting to kick in for Jake, and he is higher than the sky, higher than the stratosphere. He's on another galaxy. And I was like, Mary Jane don't do that. And come to find out, either Alonzo or the original informant guy has laced this tree with something else. And so yes, Jake was drugged, and we're just like, okay. The reason that like Alonzo made Jake do this was because he's like, in order to be a good narcotics officer, you have to fully know like what's happening on the streets. And to be an even better narcotics officer, you might as well have narcotics in your blood so that you can fully know what's going on. And I'm just like, so are you high right now? Because it's looking a little pot calling the kettle black right now. And granted, while I'm not saying y'all both should be high, I'm just saying that how about we just take this rhetoric and throw it out the window? How about that? So they continue driving on for a little bit more, and then they stop at some guy's house. And we find out that the guy is on parole, and he is waiting for his parole to end. I think he said he was going to leave the country. I don't fully remember, but he's ready to go. So they like chop it up. They tell some stories. Jake makes some random allegory about like cries and cheers and something, smiles and tears, something like that. It was all cute in a moment. I don't fully remember. They get back in the car. They drive around again, and we're still seeing Jake's inebriated viewpoint of everything. And we kind of come back to for a little bit, and as they're driving, we kind of see down an alley very quickly, and in the alley there are two guys who are assaulting this young girl. So Jake makes Alonzo stop the car. He runs back to the alley. He starts whooping up on these two dudes, gets them handcuffed. And the whole time he was doing all that, Alonzo's got out the car and is just watching. Like, he just sitting at the edge of like the building, the turn, just watching. Once the two guys are like fully kind of taken down, the girl is like, she was like, you don't mess with Hillside Thursdays, da da da. And I'm just like, that was very odd that you like specifically, it just felt very pointed that was the point that was made. And I was like, I feel like I should keep this up here. That seems like it'll come back later. Jake is like, oh, we need to take her down to the station, get a statement, whoop, whoop. And Alonzo's like, no, just like let her go. Like, she like, it's a whole lot of paperwork. We ain't got time for that. And after the girl leaves, Alonzo like roughs up even more one of the guys, and it's just a whole lot of threatening going on, and Jake is standing back there like looking real in over his head because, homie, yes you are. uh, and he was like, yeah, like I didn't realize that this was, this was what the streets was like. Whew, you can tell he's like rethinking a lot of things. But yeah, so Alonzo lets the two guys go as well. And this is a common theme with Alonzo because Alonzo's thing is getting the bigger fish. And like, while I understand the sentiment, I also agree with Jake where he was like, okay, but we need to get these people off the street. Like, obviously, like they're trying to hurt young girls because the girl was 14. And it's like, excuse me. It's like, yeah, like we need to like do something. And Denzel was pretty much like, well, they're gonna be right back on the street anyway, so we may as well just not even try. Jake and Alonzo pull up on Snoop Dogg, who is in a wheelchair, which okay. And they're like, oh, like let me buy some of that stuff off you. And Snoop Dogg looks in the car, looks at Alonzo, who ain't paying no attention. Well, like he's paying attention, but he's just like, just it's whatever. And looks back at Jake and is like, man, I smell pig. And like he goes to like turn around and like leave the situation. And Alonzo's like, well, go after him. And Jake's like, bro, like he's in a wheelchair. And Alonzo's like, okay, so go. So Jake gets out and starts running after Snoop Dogg, who is like beast mode in this chair. Like he is like gone. Like, my God. They end up cornering him. And they get him to give them a name of Sandman. And I'm not quite sure at this point in the movie why he needed that name. So after we leave Snoop Dogg, they go to a house to search it. Jake is like, we don't have a search warrant. And essentially, Alonzo does not care. Because he's like, it's not about what you have, it's about what you can prove or something like that. And so they bully their way into the house, and Alonzo is holding the woman and her nephew on the couch while Alonzo is searching the room. And the aunt keeps saying like, oh, like, so-and-so's not here, so-and-so's not here, because she was saying like the dude's like government name, which I don't remember. And so like she finally calms down because like Jake has been pointing a gun at both of their faces, so she calms down a little bit. And she's like, I want to see the search warrant. And Jake's like, what? And she's like, I want to see the search warrant. You're supposed to present me with a copy of it, right? And Jake's like, oh, my partner has it, he'll give it to you when he comes out. So Alonzo finishes up what he's doing in there, and he's like, oh, I didn't find anything. I'm so sorry. Like, we'll get out of your way. And she's like, I want to see the search warrant. And Alonzo's like, what? And she's like, I want to see the search warrant. And Alonzo hands her like this like blue folded up piece of paper or whatever, and they leave. And so by the time they get in the car, she's opened it up and sees that it's just like a takeout menu. And she's like, she goes and checks the room and then comes back outside and is like yelling at them. Is like, give me back my money. You took my money. Da, da, da. And Jake's like, what is she talking about? What did you take? And he's just like, oh, don't pay her any mind. She's just being silly. Pretty much this whole time, Jake has been like weighing his options of like, he knows that he wants to become a detective. He knows that he wants to try to do good in the world. But the experience that he's having in this very first shift of his working in narcotics has been a complete 180 from what he had seen before. And he's just like, I am in over my head. This is too much going on. Like, I don't know what to do. And also, Alonzo is a master manipulator. Like, he was able to finesse any and everything to be like, oh yeah, no, like you gotta be the wolf, and the only way to catch a wolf is to be a wolf, and everybody else is sheep. And I think I'm getting the metaphor wrong, but you know what I'm trying to say. So when they leave that house, they go to this like super rough neighborhood that everybody calls the jungle. And Alonzo's like, they respect me because I treat them fairly, whoop whoop whoop, this, that, and the third. And then Alonzo's like, but never come down here without me. They go up to a house that we later find out is his like second family's home. So his girlfriend is Eva Mendes, another cameo. Um, and then they have a son together, named Alonzo Jr. Yeah, Alonzo and Eva go back into the room and do what grown-ups do while Jake and the kid are watching cartoons on the couch for so long that they both fall asleep. And then as they're waking up and leaving, Alonzo finally talks to the kid and is like, "Oh, hey son, you're growing up, da 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 da." And I'm just like, what kind of conversation is this? But anyway, now we're finally getting to the meat and the potatoes of this movie, because I was like, okay, cool. We're it's a lot of introductions, a lot of like, here's some puzzle pieces that I'm throwing onto the table, but none of them fit together yet. It's like you got four corner pieces and you're just like, okay, I see that a puzzle is here, but you can't put any of it together. Alonzo has a meeting with these guys that we call the three wise men. And they're pretty much like, hey, we know about what happened in Vegas. Like, what are you going to do about it? We can take care of it if you put the pressure on this dude who should have gone to prison, but pled insanity, and he only did 6 months in that institution, and now he's out. We don't think that's fair. So you need to find a way to make sure that he goes back to jail, or give us this money. And Alonzo's like, hey, don't worry about it. I'm gonna take care of it. Whoop, whoop, it's all good. So they leave the dinner and they go to the house of the person who they're supposed to be like, putting the pressure on. And come to find out, it's the dude from earlier who they were chopping it up with. That Jake was thinking like, oh, like I thought this was your friend. And Alonzo's like, ain't no friends in this business. And so while they're there, they find so Alonzo kind of tells homeboy the situation of like, oh, like, they want to send you back to jail, or you could just give them, some of your money. You won't even miss that little bit of money. So they find the money in the floorboards, and they take a little bit off the top for themselves. Jake is not comfortable with this at all. Like, he still thinks that they're joking, but like they are all dead serious. And so when they come back into the main room with the guy whose house it is, Alonzo tells Jake to shoot him, and Jake is just like, what are you talking about? And Alonzo's like, yeah, like, shoot him. And Jake's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So then Alonzo shoots him himself, and watches him leave this earthly realm. And he's like, creating the cover story. And so I'm like, okay, so we're gonna say that you came in, that like the other guy came in through the front door, and he took a couple of shots before he was able to shoot and kill the main person who we came in here for. And Jake is just like, yo, like, this is not right. We're not supposed to do this. Like, we're becoming the criminals that we're trying to stop. And Alonzo was not going, and pulls a gun on him. And it's just like, hey, you need to fall in line. And then Jake gets the upper hand and like maneuvers the gun away from him. And it's like, this is the second time you've pulled a gun on me today. There won't be a third. And I'm just like, I feel like there might be a third. Let's get ready for it. Denzel is able to finesse the situation yet again, because he's pretty much like, hey, remember how you did those drugs in the car earlier? Nobody put a gun to your head and told you to do that. And it's just like, oh, this man is psychopathic. And so Jake sees that there's no way out of this situation. So he, kind of lets the chip fall as they may and goes to take a walk or whatever. Alonzo and Jake leave again, and they are off to their next location. This next location just happens to be a house full of gang activity. They walk in with like a brand new blender and a brand new, I guess, CD player. But those are just covers for all of the money that Alonzo was giving to them. And I was like, what's happening? Why are we giving them so much money right now? So I'm still like not fully thinking. And so Alonzo's like, oh, like I have to go to the bathroom right here. I'll be right back. And so Jake is kind of like standing in like one of the doorways so that he get like a wider like view of everything that's going on. And the guys are like, oh, like, like come sit down, play a game of cards with us. And he's like, oh no, like we're about to leave. Like I'm good. And they're like, oh no, like he's in there doing number 2. Like he'll be a minute. Just go ahead and sit down. And so he sits down and I'm sitting here like, that's really strange that you would just like pop over to this house, bring them tens of thousands of dollars, and then be like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. They're playing cards and you can tell that like something is about to happen where like they about to do something to Jake, but like we're just like, what's going on? Like, where is Denzel? And so the like lead guy shows Jake that Denzel is gone. Like he dipped out of here quick, fast, and in a hurry. And we're just like, oh, so Denzel paid these dudes off to kill Jake. Okay. They're like, exposition dumping on us because Jake is like, like, why is this happening? And essentially they tell us that the situation in Vegas was that Alonzo has a very bad temper, which I could have told you that. And he popped off on somebody while he was in Vegas and beat them until they were no longer on this earthly plane. And the person that Alonzo beat up was a part of the mob. And so now the Russians are after him and Alonzo has to bring them $1 million by midnight or he is done. And so that was why Alonzo brought Jake to that house, was because essentially Jake was a loose end and he needs to get rid of him. So that's what they were going to do. They were going to get rid of him. So they take him to the bathroom, I guess, to like get his head like under like the water in the bathtub. And so one of the goons is like, oh, let me get his wallet. And he reaches into his back pocket and he pulls out this like pink wallet. And he's like going through like taking the money out. And then like he looks at the ID and he's like, hey, like to the main dude. He's like, hey, ain't this your cousin? And like he looks at it and it's the girl from earlier who was getting attacked by the 2 dudes that Jake had stopped. And so the like leader of the pack was like, hey yo, like why do you have my cousin's ID in your pocket? And he was like, no, like she was getting attacked. I tried to stop him. I promise. Like I was trying to help. And earlier I had realized that like when they were sitting there, I was just like, this is just so random. Like who are these dudes? And I was like, they're probably the Hillside Thesis. And of course, that's exactly who it was, because he calls up his cousin and it's like, hey, did you go to school today? Like, were you in school all day? Did anything happen? And she just on the phone, line, talking about, oh yeah, I was at school. I didn't skip. I was at school all day. And he's like, I need to tell me the truth. Like, what happened today? And she was like, oh, well, I got attacked by these 2 dudes. Like, they didn't really do nothing to me or whatever. Because this cop came out of nowhere and he stopped them. And he was like, well, what did he look like? And she was like, oh, well, he was a white dude. He was like younger looking. But I don't really know like that. And so, I don't wipe this back up. And so, like, the leader dude was like, okay, cool. It looks like your story checks out. Sorry about that. It's just business. No hard feelings. And Jake is like, yeah, sure, just business. All right, let me go. So Jake gets on the bus and Jake has like the look in his eyes of like, it's past like seeing red. That was, I'm seeing red, but meticulously. Jake is riding the bus over back to the neighborhood where Alonzo's baby mama stays. Jake has to walk all the way from the front of the neighborhood all the way to the back where Eva Mendez stays. And he gets to the gate, like while he's walking, like all the people are like, oh, you must be lost. You don't know where you at. Whoop, 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 this, that, and the third, trying to intimidate him. But Jake is focused on his mission. He is not paying them fools no attention. He is going straight to the apartment complex. So he gets there. It's a couple of thugs in front of the gate. And guess who was one of the thugs in front of the gate? Freaking Terry Crews. I was like, bro. Because my whole thing is like, I don't feel like I can take Terry Crews seriously anymore. He definitely gives off family friendly. And so now it's like seeing him in older stuff where he was like thug number 2. I just can't take it seriously. But I was like, okay, Terry, like, Look at you, home guard. But yeah, Jake says that he's there to see Alonzo. They look him up and down, see that he has a piece, and like they don't really like Alonzo anyway because Alonzo, like I said earlier, think that no rules apply to him and that he can just do whatever he wants and tell everybody anything and they are just gonna jump. So they don't care for him. So they see Jake has his little piece and it's like, all right, go ahead, go in. And so Jake goes up to the apartment. He sees the son in the window, has the son open the door, tells the son to hide in the closet. He goes back to the bedroom where they are and like kicks in the door, like tells him to like, zip up the bag that has the money in it and to put the guns in the pillowcase. Alonzo is still feeling like, oh, I can finesse this. I can talk my way out of this. And he puts all the guns in the pillowcases and whatnot, but surprise, he has another gun. Like he has like a shotgun, MacGyver to the bottom of the bed, like on like a little rotating thing that I was like, this is actually kind of cool. But yeah, so like chaos ensues, and the baby comes out of the little closet because he wanted his mama because all this stuff is going on. He gets scared, so now the baby's in danger. But Jake is able to save the baby, take him to the other side of the room, and then Eva eventually comes out and is able to get him after Alonzo has like jumped up to the roof. They run across the roofs and they get back to like the little pigeon coop, and we're looking through because we're like, okay, like where is he? So like we're looking from Jake's perspective of trying to find Alonzo. And they eventually do find each other. They scuffle a little bit more. Alonzo gets the upper hand, and Jake is like lying on the ground, I guess seemingly unconscious. So Alonzo gets his bag out of the pigeon coop. He goes downstairs, gets in the car, goes to back out of the parking spot, and Jake jumps on the hood of the car. Sir, you were already like very close to knocking on heaven's door. Now you just jump off of maybe a 3-story building onto a car, onto the like. You should not be good right now. But plot armor is thicker than anything, and so Denzel like speeds and backs into another car, and then drives forward into one car, and then it kind of goes back and forth a little bit. And eventually they both are hurt so much that Denzel has to stop driving and he gets out of the car. So at this point, the neighborhood has like come out and is like watching everything happen. And it's just like, oh my goodness, what's happening? And Alonzo is like, whoever can, put homeboy down, I'll make you a rich man, whoop, whoop, whoop. And pretty much everyone in the neighborhood is just like, no, we don't trust you. We don't believe you. We don't like you. And one of the, I guess like the head thug from the neighborhood like comes over and puts a gun on the ground for Alonzo, and it's like, we don't work for you. You handle your own business. And Alonzo looks like he's going to grab the gun, but he actually just grabs a pack of cigarettes, and he takes one, lights it, and it's like, oh, like you're not gonna shoot me, ooh, this, that, and the third. He goes and like puts his police shield on, not shield, his police badge on, and it's like, you want to shoot me right here. So he stands back up and he goes to get the gun. Like he turns around, like turns his back to Jake because he just knows that Jake's not gonna shoot him. And as he is like going to reach for the gun, Jake shoots him like Will Smith did Martin Lawrence in Bad Boys 2. I was like, bro. I just thought that was so wild because like I figured he was gonna shoot him, but like non-lethally. But I was not expecting him to shoot him in the butt. That was so funny. And so Alonzo at this point like realizes that he's not necessarily winning the situation. And he was like, look, you've got to let me take this money. Like, you have got to let me take this money because essentially like the Russians are going to kill him if he does not get this money. And so Jake still does not care. He takes his police badge, he takes the bag of money, and it's like it pretty much leaves him there because he was like, whatever the quote was that Alonzo had been saying the whole time about like why he hadn't done all the paperwork and stuff, Jake says that same line. It's like, oh, mic drop, like and walks off. So somehow the plot armor also protects the car because Denzel's able to drive the car and try to escape his fate, but he is not quick enough. He gets to a red light and a woman in a minivan pulls up beside him. He kind of like looks over. She's kind of like, kind of eyes forward, kind of, just like chilling, whatever. But he's like, something seems a little fishy. And as he goes to like run the light to get away from her, he gets hit by a Jeep. And essentially the Russians come out and surround him and light up his car, which I was like, oh, okay, that's wild how that happened. But Denzel's dead now. He is not. The door opens and Denzel like crawls out. And I'm just like, how thick is this plot armor, man? So Denzel goes to stand up and he's like leaning on the car and they light him up again. And I was like, okay, so now he's fully dead, right? He's dead. Yes, he is. He slumps to the ground, and that is the end of the movie. That is Training Day. I will say that I enjoyed Training Day more than I enjoyed trying to watch Juice for a second time. But it's just funny to me because when I was younger, when I didn't know what the movie was about, I just assumed it was about sports because that was the only training that I had any reference to. Like if anyone said training, it had something to do with sports. So I'm thinking like Training Day was like, I don't know, like maybe I had watched Remember the Titans and somebody told me about Training Day. I really don't know. That was kind of a mind-blowing thing to learn that it was not indeed about sports. Because fortunately I did find out like more than yesterday that it was about police officers. But it was still wild. It was just wild to me that this whole time I had been thinking that Denzel was the protagonist, or like he is a main character. He's not the main character. And that everyone had just been getting so gung-ho about Denzel's character. And like pretty much everyone talked about, all the quotables were lines from Denzel. And Denzel's the bad guy. And I was like, man. But the funniest part to me was at the end of the movie after Jake goes home. I almost forgot about this part. They are like playing like the news role of what happened, and they're like, oh, like LAPD officer was found dead. He is survived by his wife and 4 children. But it's so funny to me because we never saw his actual family. Like we never met the wife. We never met the 4 kids. What we did see was the girlfriend and her son. And of course they don't get mentioned. So like, do they show up to the funeral? Like there's so many other questions that I have outside of what is actually shown. None of them are important, but like they're important to me because I care. But that is Training Day. I know next week my aunt wants to watch this movie. I don't remember the name of it, but like once we watch it, I'll make sure that I remember it so I can say it. But it's about family and it's Thanksgiving, like all that good stuff. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you've watched this far, please make sure to like and subscribe. Share this with somebody who you think has not seen these classics and needs to watch them. And until then, I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.